Hello again, darlings. It's time for another episode of the Pulp Raconteur and The Swordsman of Mars by Otis Adelbert Klein. Today you'll find me on a train on the way to Baltimore, which is pretty exciting. So you get some scenery to my right, your left, probably, as well as some adventure on Mars. When last we saw our heroes, he had been declared dead and taken prisoner by his mortal enemy, but they don't yet know that he is a man of Earth and not actually of Mars. Chapter 7. Thorn's journey was not a pleasant one. Like the other prisoners, the Earthman was compelled by the lurching of the ship to keep a tight hold on his chain with both hands, and thus ease the sudden jerks on his metal collar that would otherwise have choked him. Consequently, he was thankful when after more than an hour of riding, he sensed that the ship was settling, then felt the shock of its landing. A moment later, the door was flung open by one of the guards, and the folding metal steps were dropped. The other guard opened the prisoners' collars one by one with a key he carried and ordered them out the door. Thorn, the third to step out, saw that they were in a large walled enclosure in which several hundred men, some lying on the ground or lolling against the walls, others pacing up and down or conversing in small groups. At the bottom of the ladder, an officer waited, attended by two soldiers, one of whom carried a bundle of metal rings. The officer was scanning a paper which the first guard had handed him, evidently a list of prisoners. As each man descended, he asked his name and checked the list. Then, the soldier with the rings fastened one about the prisoner's neck and called the number engraved on the ring. When it came Thorn's turn, the officer asked, "Your name?" "Sheb Takor." "What is your real name?" "I've told you," Thorn replied. The officer shrugged. "It will be so entered, though the report says that you are an impostor. But that will be a matter for the judges." He signed the soldier with the rings, who clamped one about Thorn's neck, and called the number. The soldier gave him a push that sent him stumbling into the yard, and the officer began questioning the next prisoner. Recovering his balance, the Earthman walked morosely to the center of the enclosure. A glance about him at the high walls, patrolled by heavily armed warriors, convinced him that escape would be next to impossible. Beyond the walls, on all sides, he saw the upper stories of many cylindrical, flat-topped buildings. He concluded from this that he must be in the midst of a large and populous city. Having completed his inspection of his surroundings, he found a place where he could sit and lean against a wall and think. His case, it seemed, was well-nigh hopeless. As he sat there, Thorn noticed coming towards him a man with a huge chest and shoulders, long, ape-like arms, and abnormally short legs. With a start of surprise, he recognized the Gen of the Takor Free Swordsman. "You'll do!" he exclaimed. "I shield my eyes, my lord Sheb," said the Gen, "and thank Deza that you are still alive. Lalvak and I thought you dead, and so reported at the castle. What brought you here?" "My arrest came so suddenly," replied Yeraldu, "that I am still bewildered. I was sent here this morning charged with inciting the Free Swordsmen to revolt against the Kamud." "And should they be able to prove such an absurd charge, what will be the penalty?" "Death. In what form I know not. The 7 dread judges of the Kamud deal out death in many fiendish forms. Their most merciful sentence is a stroke of the sword. Then there are the mines. A sentence to the mines is really a death sentence, and for few men survive their rigors for many days. And what sentence do you think they'll pass on me? Of what is my lord accused?" "So a soldier of the Kamud who attacked me. Also, I am to be charged with impersonating myself, because I am officially dead. Furthermore, there is some suspicion attached to me which I cannot fathom, because I am wearing a sword of the Magongi." Yeraldu groaned. "Oof. You might have attained an acquittal on the first 2 counts, but I fear this latter spells your doom. Deza grant that I, Yeraldu, Gen of the Takor Free Swordsman, may never live to see my Rad die in such dishonor." "But why should a sword of the Magongi constitute such damning evidence?" "It is believed," the Gen told him, "that the Magongi are plotting to overthrow the old race, to conquer all Mars. There have been persistent rumors that one of the archaeologists has unearthed the secret of the deadly green ray. Although we should not dare to publicly voice our suspicions, there are also those among us who suspect Selhan of plotting with the Magongi. He has so wormed himself into the good graces of Irrance Tell that a word breathed against him would bring instant disaster to almost any man. It is said also that the Dixtar intends to wed his daughter, Neva, to the arch-plotter, and that through marriage with her he will evidently succeed to the Dixtarship of Zanzibar. It is obvious that this Selhan is indeed a menace to all mankind, said Thorn. I have further suspicion, went on Yerledu, born when you told me of the disappearance of Thane's father. Miradon Vil, a prisoner, would be an estimable value to Selhan in his plans for conquest. With the Vil in his power, he could hold the Royalists as well as the Kamud in the hollow of his hand. The colony of the Magongi inhabits part of the marsh not far from Miradon's hiding place, and it may well be that they, at the instigation of their ally, Selhan, have captured the Vil and are holding him in some secret hiding place. Thorn was about to reply when the shrill whistle sounded. Come, said Yerledu. That was the food signal, and the last 10 men in line always go hungry. They both sprang forward to where a long line of prisoners was forming before a table containing some small cakes and cubical cups of polcho. Presided over by 4 orderlies who had already begun to hand out a cup and cake to each man under the watchful eyes of the half-dozen soldiers with drawn swords. Thorn saw, on looking back, that there were exactly 10 men behind him. Shuffling forward with the others, he was surprised to feel a powerful hand clamped on his shoulder. Before he could offer the slightest resistance, he was spun around and found himself walking behind the man who had previously been just behind him. Thorn seized the brawny arm of the man who had supplanted him and swung him around. He had a swift glimpse of a glaring face crisscrossed by a frightful pattern of livid scars. Then he drove a smashing right hook to the point of the jaw that sent the man reeling backwards to the ground. In a moment, the fellow began to recover from the effect of the blow and sat up looking about him. Suddenly spying Thorn, he shook...
Next, Lafont. Please exit to the rear of this car. Lafont.
Suddenly spying Thorn, he shook his bullet head, then lurched to his feet and charged. Thorn turned at the sound and prepared to meet the shock of the attack. With both arms outstretched, the man attempted to seize him, but a blow in the solar plexus followed by a swift uppercut downed him again. Instantly, Yerledu, who had drained his polcho cup and was munching his cake, tossed the food aside and sprang forward. Let me handle this beast, my lord. He is Sordet, the most dreaded duelist and assassin in all Zanzibar. By this time, most of the prisoners were crowding around, talking excitedly while they munched and drank. Swords! Someone shouted. Bring swords! A group of guards came shouldering through the crowd, making way for a handsome fellow who wore a purple cloak of an officer of the Kamud. What's this, Sordet? He asked. Fighting again. Sordet scrambled to his feet and saluted. That fellow, he said, glaring at Thorn, has twice assaulted me. I ask settlement by swords, which is my right according to prison rules. The officer turned to Thorn. What say you? Do you also desire settlement by swords? I do, the Earthman replied. Obviously, you have not heard the prowess of Sordet, said the officer. But on your own head be your decision. Give them swords, soldiers, and let a circle be formed. What will happen next in The Swordsman of Mars by Otis Adelbert Klein?